My name is Stephen Collins. I'm 36 years old, living in a beautiful townhouse in Boston's historic Back Bay. From my living room window, I often watch the cobblestone streets shimmer under the evening lights, a picturesque scene where history and the present merge. Too many, my life might look like a dream today. I run a tech education company valued at hundreds of millions. I have a comfortable home and a bright, energetic 10-year-old son. But beneath this polished exterior lies a challenging journey, marked by tears, heartache, and wounds that may never completely fade. I'm sharing my story not to brag, but to illustrate that sometimes the brightest light emerges only after the darkest times. I grew up in a modest family in the Boston suburbs, though I wasn't their biological child. Deborah and Peter Collins adopted me from an orphanage when I was 3. My adoptive mother, Deborah, was truly the kindest woman I've ever known. Her warm brown eyes always looked at me as if I were her entire world. When I was small, she'd sit by my bedside every night, telling me fairy tales, stroking my hair, and whispering that I was her most precious gift. My adoptive father, Peter, however, was a completely different person. He was a stern, distant man. I can still recall his piercing, blade-sharp gaze whenever I'd accidentally spill a glass of water or forget my homework. You're not my son. He once spat at me when I was 15 during a heated argument. Those words cut deep, embedding themselves in my mind, a constant reminder that I was an outsider in that home. Then there was Ryan, my adoptive younger brother, 5 years my junior. Ryan was Peter and Deborah's biological son, and he knew it. He grew up with the arrogance of someone unconditionally loved, always finding ways to mock me from ridiculing my worn-out school shoes, too deliberately humiliating me in front of friends. "You're just the spare they picked up," he once sneered, his smile dripping with malice. I tried to shrug it off, but each of his words felt like a stone hitting my heart, chipping away at it bit by bit.
I made my mother stood up for me, wiping
away my tears when I hid in my room. She'd tell me I deserved to be loved, no matter where I came from. Our family wasn't wealthy. My father was a bank employee, and my mother was an elementary school teacher. Every expense was carefully managed to make ends meet. When I graduated high school, my dream of attending college fell apart because we couldn't afford it. Ryan, of course, was prioritized. "He's the future of this family," my father declared, as if I meant nothing. I didn't blame my mother. I knew she'd tried to convince my father, but he never listened. So I started working first as a waiter in a small diner, then as a warehouse worker. But I didn't want to stop there. A fierce ambition burned within me, a need to prove I wasn't the worthless person my father and Ryan believed I was. At 20, I embarked on my entrepreneurial path. My vision was a tech education platform offering free, high-quality lessons to children in underserved communities. I worked tirelessly day and night, sleeping on a sofa in a tiny rented apartment and eating instant noodles to save every penny. But launching a business was far from a fairy tale. My first 2 ventures failed spectacularly. I lost all my savings, plunged into debt, and spent many nights alone, questioning if I was just deluding myself. My father and Ryan never missed an opportunity to mock me. "You think you can achieve anything significant, you little orphan?" Ryan sneered during a family dinner. My father simply looked at me, shaking his head as if I were a profound disappointment. Yet, my mother was always there. She secretly sent me her savings money. I knew she had painstakingly put aside from her modest teacher's salary. "You'll succeed, Stephen," she'd say, gripping my hand firmly. "I believe in you." Her unwavering encouragement was the spark that kept me going. Then, at 25, I met Monica, the woman I believed would be the love of my life. She was radiant, with a smile that could brighten any room. We fell deeply in love and married after just a year. When our son Logan was born, I finally felt my life had true purpose. I swore I'd give Logan the loving, secure family I never had, but life, as it often does, had other plans. When Logan was 3, my third startup failed. I was buried in debt, crushed by the financial strain. Monica began to change, becoming distant and irritable. Then, one day, she simply left. No explanation, just a note on the kitchen table. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. She didn't just abandon me. She abandoned Logan, the son she once called her whole world. I held my 3-year-old boy, who innocently asked, "Where's Mommy, Daddy?" My heart shattered, not only from Monica's betrayal, but from knowing I couldn't answer him without causing more pain. From that moment on, it was just Logan and me, relying on each other. The days after Monica left were a blur of sleepless nights and anxious moments. I still remember the tiny apartment we rented in the Boston suburbs, with its stained, damp walls and the constant blare of car horns from the street. Below, Logan, at just 3, would curl up in his blanket, his big, round eyes looking up at me as he'd ask, "Mommy's coming back, right, Daddy?" Time, I could only hold him close, whispering gentle lies to shield him from the truth. I didn't know how to explain to a child that his mother had chosen to leave him. All I knew was that I had to be strong, not for myself, but for Logan, my little boy. During those darkest days, my adoptive mother Deborah was my anchor, preventing me from spiraling into despair. She'd secretly visit, bringing homemade meals, stews, toasted bread, or a jar of Logan's favorite strawberry jam. "You need to eat properly, Stephen," she'd say. Her voice filled with worry, her trembling hands placing the food containers on the table. Once she slipped an envelope with a few $100s into my hand. I protested, shame welling up, but she held my hand firmly, her eyes resolute. "You're my son. I can't just stand by and watch you and Logan suffer." I hugged her, tears silently falling. Her kindness was the only thing that reminded me I wasn't entirely alone. My adoptive father, Peter, and brother Ryan, however, were a different story. They never asked about us or showed any concern for me and Logan. Once, I brought Logan back to the old family home, hoping for a shred of familial warmth. But Peter just looked at me with his cold eyes and said, "You brought this misery on yourself. Don't expect me to help." Ryan was even worse. He smirked, eyeing Logan's worn clothes, and said, "Look at this kid, just like his dad. A failure." I gripped Logan's hand tightly, pulling him out of that house, my heart aching. I vowed never to let Logan feel as inferior as they had made me feel. And then, a genuine miracle occurred. After numerous setbacks, my EdTech platform, designed to offer free education to children in remote areas, finally gained momentum. A significant investor from Silicon Valley recognized its potential and injected millions of dollars. My company soared. From a small office with just 3 employees, we expanded into a business with hundreds of staff, valued at hundreds of millions. I became a self-made millionaire, a dream I never dared to entertain when I was sleeping on a sofa and living on instant noodles. Life for Logan and me transformed completely. I bought a townhouse in Back Bay, with large windows overlooking the cobblestone streets and walls adorned with Logan's artwork. I enrolled Logan in a prestigious private school, where he could cultivate his talent for painting and his remarkable intelligence. Every evening I'd sit with Logan, helping with his homework, telling him stories, trying to compensate for the difficult years he'd endured. Yet, despite the wealth and success, a void remained in my heart. I yearned for a true home where Logan had a loving mother, and I had a woman by my side, someone who loved me for who I am, not for my fame or money. I tried to repay my adoptive mother, offering to buy her a new house, or at least take her on a trip. But she always declined. "I don't need anything, Stephen," she'd say, smiling gently. "Seeing you and Logan happy is enough for me." Once I secretly deposited money into her account, but she discovered it and returned it with a handwritten letter. "Save it for Logan's future. I just want you to know I'm proud of you." Reading those words, I broke down in tears. She was the only one in my adoptive family who loved me unconditionally, and I vowed never to let her feel alone. However, my adoptive father and Ryan completely changed their demeanor once they learned of my success. Peter, who once labeled me useless, began calling, his voice falsely sweet, inquiring about the company and subtly suggesting I invest in his ventures. Ryan appeared with a forced smile, clapping me on the shoulder as if our past animosity never existed. "You've done well, Stephen," he'd say, but his eyes betrayed his envy and ulterior motives. I wasn't surprised. I knew their sincerity was feigned, but I remained polite for my mother's sake. Still, the wounds they inflicted never truly healed in my heart. I promised myself I would never let them harm Logan or pull me back into those painful memories. Logan's and my life gradually stabilized, like a boat finally finding calm waters. After endless storms, I dedicated most of my time to strengthening the company and my evenings to my son reading books, playing basketball in the backyard, or simply watching movies together. Logan, now 10, had bright eyes and a smile identical to my own as a child. He was my life source, but I knew he needed more. He needed a complete family. So did I. I yearned for a woman who could fill the void Monica had left. Someone who would love Logan as her own and love me for who I am, not for my bank balance. Then I met Alexis Monroe. It was a crisp fall evening in Boston at a charity event sponsored by my company. The event was held at a luxurious hotel by the Charles River, with twinkling lights reflecting on the water and soft jazz music filling the air. I arrived alone, as usual, primarily to network with investors and partners. Didn't expect much, just hoping to forge a few more connections for the business. But then, amidst the crowd, I saw her. Alexis stood out like a vibrant flower in a garden. She was 25, with shimmering golden hair cascading over her shoulders, sparkling blue eyes like the ocean, and a warm smile that could melt anyone. She wore a simple yet elegant black dress that gracefully hugged her slender figure, moving with a natural poise that drew every eye. I happened to stand next to her at the bar as we both ordered red wine. "Excuse me, are you Stephen Collins?" she asked, her voice gentle and sweet as honey. I nodded, a bit surprised, not realizing I was that well known. "I've read about your edtech platform. It's amazing how you help children access free education. I work for an NGO focused on children's education, so I truly admire people like you." We started talking and time seemed to stand still. Alexis shared details about her work, her trips to rural areas to teach underprivileged children, and her passion for helping others. She listened intently as I recounted my entrepreneurial journey, her eyes shining with genuine empathy when I mentioned my failures. "You must be incredibly strong to have overcome all that," she said, lightly placing her hand on my arm. In that moment, an electric current ran through me. It had been a long time since I felt such a profound connection, not superficial admiration, but real care. We exchanged phone numbers, and before leaving, she smiled. "I hope we'll meet again, Stephen." From there, things progressed quickly. Our first date was at a small cafe in Back Bay, where we talked for hours about everything from books to future dreams. Alexis was surprisingly perceptive. She remembered every small detail I shared, like how Logan loved drawing, and on our second date, she brought him a set of watercolors as a gift. "I thought Logan would like it," she said, her smile radiant. I introduced her to Logan sooner than planned, because I wanted to see his reaction. Logan was polite at first, but I noticed a hint of wariness. "She's so pretty, Dad," Logan said after their first meeting, but his voice carried a subtle discomfort. Alexis ignited in me the hope for a new family. She subtly showed interest in Logan, asking about his school, even offering to help with his homework. To me, she was the perfect woman, gentle, intelligent, and always there when I needed her. We spent weekends strolling hand in hand around Boston Common, laughing like young lovers. I told her about my painful past, my adoptive family, and Monica, and she listened, holding me tighter. "You deserve happiness, Stephen," she whispered. "I'll be by your side, making up for those hurts." For the first time in years, I felt truly loved. I believed I had found the woman who could heal my heart's wounds, the one who would build a home with me for Logan. My adoptive family quickly learned about Alexis. I brought her home for a visit, and their reactions genuinely surprised me. My adoptive father, Peter, who had always been so cold towards me, suddenly became enthusiastic. "She's wonderful, Stephen," he said, patting my shoulder with a rare smile. "She seems smart and beautiful." "Don't let her get away." Ryan, my adoptive brother, praised her even more. You're lucky, bro. She's the perfect woman, young, alluring, and sure to bring you happiness. I found it odd, as they had never supported me like that before, but I convinced myself that perhaps my success had changed them. My adoptive mother, Deborah, was supportive as always. As long as you're happy, Stephen, she said, hugging me tightly. I see your eyes light up when you talk about her. That's what matters most. But not everyone was pleased. Logan, my son, began to show suspicion. He sensed something artificial. About Alexis. She smiles too much, Dad, Logan said one evening at dinner. She's trying too hard to make me like her. I laughed it off, thinking he was just jealous of sharing his dad. Son, Alexis just wants to get close to you. She's a good person. But Logan didn't stop. He warned me multiple times. Like when Alexis gave him an expensive toy. He said, "She's trying to buy me, Dad." I dismissed it, thinking Logan was still young, only 10, and didn't fully grasp love. I was too desperate for a home, too blinded by love. So, I ignored the unusual signs, like how Alexis sometimes evaded questions about her past, or took secretive phone calls when we were together. Alexis skillfully built a bond with me. She cooked romantic dinners at home, massaged me after long work days, and always knew how to make me laugh. With Logan, she tried to win him over by taking him to the park, buying ice cream, or telling jokes. But Logan kept his distance. Once, he accidentally spilled water on Alexis's dress, and though she laughed it off, Logan whispered to me afterward, "She's pretending, Dad." I saw her get angry. I started to get irritated with my son. Logan, you have to be polite to Alexis. She's going to be your stepmom. For the first time, I scolded Logan for being rude to his future stepmom. Logan looked at me with hurt in his eyes. "You love her more than me now," he said, his voice trembling. I hugged Logan, apologizing, but in my heart I knew a rift was forming between us. In the days that followed, I tried to make it up to Logan by spending more time with him. We went to the park, played ball, and I told him stories from my childhood stories. I hoped would help him understand that I loved him more than anything. But the crack had already appeared, and every time Alexis came over, Logan would fall silent, retreating into his shell. I convinced myself that time would heal everything, that once we officially became a family, Logan would accept Alexis. I was too blind, too desperate for happiness to realize that my son's warnings were becoming increasingly clear. After just a few months of dating, everything moved so rapidly, I could barely keep up. I proposed to Alexis on a romantic evening. At a restaurant overlooking the Charles River, I knelt, holding a diamond ring sparkling under the candlelight, and said, "Alexis, you are the missing piece in my life. Will you marry me?" She cried, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "Yes," with a radiant smile. My heart swelled with joy, as if all the pain from my past had finally vanished. I envisioned a perfect future, a happy family, Logan with a loving stepmother, and me with a partner to share every joy and sorrow. But when I told Logan, his reaction hit me like a splash of cold water. "God, don't marry her," Logan shouted, his face flushed, red tears streaming down his cheeks. "She's no good, Dad. She's fake." "I know it." He hugged me tightly, trembling, begging me to reconsider. I tried to explain, stroking his back. "Logan, Alexis loves me, and she loves you. She'll bring happiness to us." But Logan shook his head furiously, ran to his room, and slammed the door. His cries echoed, tightening my heart. I stood outside his door, knocking gently, but he wouldn't open it. For the first time, I felt like I was losing the trust of my son, the most important person in my life. But my blind love for Alexis made me ignore it, convincing myself he was just jealous and everything would be fine. We began planning the wedding, a lavish affair I believed would be the pinnacle of happiness. Alexis wanted everything perfect, and I agreed. We chose a 5-star resort in the Maldives with pristine white sand beaches, turquoise waters, and luxurious overwater bungalows. The wedding was planned for 5 days, not a simple ceremony, but a grand event with hundreds of important guests. Business partners, investors, friends from the tech world, and even the media. I wanted this wedding to be a statement of my journey, from an orphaned boy who was underestimated to a successful millionaire, now with a wonderful woman by my side. During the preparations, Logan seemed to be pushed aside. I was consumed with work, meetings with event planners, selecting menus, and discussing guest lists. Alexis spent her time trying on wedding dresses and choosing flowers, showing less interest in Logan than before. Once I asked her, "What do you think Logan should do in the wedding? Maybe carry the rings?" Alexis smiled. "Yeah, that's a good idea, honey, but the kid's still young. Don't force him." I noticed Logan was mentioned less and less in our conversations. He sat alone in his room, drawing dark pictures and images of broken families that I only glimpsed and dismissed as childish imagination. "I don't want to go to the wedding," Logan said once, his voice sad. I snapped. "Logan, this isn't important." "Day 4, Dad, you have to cheer up." He lowered his head. I felt guilty, but then I was swept back into the whirlwind of preparations. Finally, the wedding day arrived. We flew to the Maldives on a private jet, with my adoptive family and Logan in tow. The resort was pure paradise. High-end wooden villas with private pools, luxurious spas, and secluded beaches. The 5-day event was meticulously planned. Day 1 featured a welcome party with cocktails and dinner under the stars. Day 2 was dedicated to beach games and group activities. Day 3 hosted the official ceremony on the beach at sunset. Day 4 included a barbecue and dancing, and the final day concluded with a farewell brunch before everyone departed. Guests arrived from all corners of the globe. The media captured photos and conducted interviews, hailing the wedding as a modern fairy tale. I felt like I was at my peak, hand in hand with Alexis, a constant smile on my face. But behind the glamorous facade, unsettling signs began to surface, though I failed to notice them. Alexis would disappear strangely often. On the first day, during the welcome party, she said, "I'm going for a little walk, okay, honey?" and vanished for hours. I assumed she just needed some space, but Logan, with the sharp eyes of a 10-year-old, had taken notice. He had been suspicious for a long time, and now at the resort, he decided to follow her. "Dad, where is she going?" Logan asked me, but I waved him off. "Don't worry about it. Alexis is just enjoying herself." Logan said nothing, but he stealthily followed her, hiding behind tropical bushes, phone in hand. The birthday gift I'd given him had now become a secret investigative tool. My adoptive father, Peter, and brother Ryan also arrived early. They seemed to be unusually close to Alexis, almost as if they were old friends. I caught glimpses of them talking privately by the water's edge, exchanging meaningful glances and oddly intimate gestures, which surprised me a bit, but I quickly dismissed it. Ryan patted Alexis on the shoulder, laughing casually, and Dad whispered something in her ear, making her nod and smile. I thought they were just fitting in, especially since they had praised Alexis so much before the wedding, constantly saying she was the perfect fit for the family. "Your family is amazing," Alexis said when she returned to me, kissing my cheek lightly. That moment made me feel euphoric, as if the whole world was smiling at me. I held her tighter, feeling love overflow, erasing any vague worries. But Logan saw things differently. The boy, with the sensitivity of a 10-year-old who had witnessed a family fall apart, had been suspicious for a while. While I was busy with guests, Logan hid behind a rock near the beach, phone in hand. Quickly snapping questionable moments, Alexis secretly texting with a tense expression, then sneaking off to meet Dad and Ryan in a hidden corner of the resort, obscured by tropical bushes. They whispered something, their gestures more intimate than normal, a lingering touch, a conspiratorial smile. Logan's heart pounded with fear, but he still tried to record everything, believing it was the only way to protect his dad. It's just minutes. Later, Logan ran up to me, face flushed, tugging at my sleeve while I was laughing and chatting with a group of business partners. "Dad, look what I have." Alexis is meeting Grandpa and Uncle Ryan secretly. They're discussing something weird, he whispered, holding up his phone with blurry but clear photos of the meeting. I glanced quickly, my heart tightening for a second. But then Alexis's smile from afar made me shake my head. I was living in the euphoric haze of love, overflowing with happiness, and I didn't want anything to ruin the moment. "Son, you must be imagining things." "They're just chatting casually. We're busy." "Go play with your friends," I said, ruffling his hair absent-mindedly, then turning back to the guests. my laughter echoing and drowning out my son's disappointed sigh. Undeterred, Logan persisted. That evening at the welcome party, as everyone raised glasses under the twinkling lights, the boy ran up again, this time with a short audio recording from his phone. "Dad, listen. I heard them talking about some plan and money." "Alexis isn't sincere," Logan whispered urgently, his eyes glistening with tears, his hand trembling as he held the phone. The sound was fuzzy, but you could faintly hear Alexis giggling. With Ryan, I paused for a moment, a sense of unease flashing through me. But then Alexis approached, wrapping her arm around my waist, whispering, "Honey." Everything is wonderful. Happiness surged, and I forgot it all, ignoring the evidence right in front of me. "Logan, stop thinking nonsense. This is our wedding. Everyone's happy. Go to bed early." "Tomorrow there are beach games," I said, my voice slightly irritated from being busy. Then gently pushing my son aside, turning back to toast with Dad and Ryan, who were laughing as if nothing had happened. The next morning, during the beach games, Logan tried once more. He ran up to me while I was in the middle of a group activity, face covered in sand. Holding up new photos, Alexis sneaking to meet my adoptive father in a private bungalow there, eyes furtive, and a fragmented audio clip. "After the wedding, Will, Dad." "Look," I followed them. "They're plotting something. Don't marry her." Logan sobbed, his voice trembling with fear and despair. I was laughing loudly from just winning a game, the euphoric feeling of happiness making everything else blurry. I glanced at the evidence, my heart stinging a bit, but then thought my son was just jealous or imagining. "Things, son. I'm really busy. Don't bother me anymore. It's just a misunderstanding. Go play." "I love you," I said quickly, patting his shoulder before turning back to the fun. Logan didn't give up, but every time he ran to me with photos, with recordings, with urgent whispers, I ignored him. I was living in a bubble of love, overflowing with happiness, and the busyness of the wedding made me unwilling to face it. "You're just imagining it," I repeated each time, then turned away, leaving my son with growing pain. Deep down, a vague unease began to form in me, but my blind love covered it all, leading me deeper into the nightmare that was about to unfold. That night, after a day of beach games filled with laughter and golden sunshine, the resort settled into a peaceful darkness, with only the rhythmic crashing of ocean waves like secret whispers. I lay in bed in the luxurious bungalow. Alexis was curled up beside me, her steady breathing bringing a smile to my fitful sleep. I dreamt of tomorrow's wedding ceremony, the day I believed would mark the beginning of a new life, where all the wounds from my past would finally heal. I had no idea what was unfolding outside under the silver moonlight, reflecting on the sparkling pool water. I slept soundly, brimming with happiness, while my world was on the verge of collapse. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Maldivian Sea, casting warm rays through the window, I woke with a smile. Alexis was still asleep, looking angelic, and I gently kissed her forehead before stepping onto the balcony for coffee. The resort. Air was serene, birdsong mingling with the sea breeze, and I thought about the wedding's final day, the farewell brunch, after which we would officially be husband and wife. But then the bungalow door burst open, and Logan rushed in, his face pale, eyes red and swollen as if he'd cried all night. "Dad, I need to talk to you urgently," he said, his voice trembling, clutching his phone as if it were the most precious thing in the world. I frowned, a bit irritated at being disturbed in this peaceful moment. "Later, son, Dad's relaxing." "Today is a happy day," I said, trying to smile to soothe him. Alexis woke, sitting up in bed with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Logan. What's wrong, sweetie?" But Logan didn't look at her. He rushed to my side, holding up his phone. "You have to see this, Dad. I followed Alexis last night. She went into Grandpa's room, and they're tricking you." His voice broke, tears streaming down his cheeks. I paused, my heart tightening slightly, but then I thought he was imagining things again. "Logan, I've told you. Stop thinking nonsense. This is Dad's wedding. Don't ruin the atmosphere." But Logan didn't stop. He burst into sobs, pressing play on his phone. And the sounds rang out, familiar voices, clear as day, making my blood run cold. It was my adoptive father, Peter's voice low and full of greed. Everything's going smoothly. That idiot Steven suspects nothing.
Yes.
After the wedding, we'll start the plan. Seize the company, the assets, and remove him from control. Then Alexis's voice, sweet but venomous. I've done my part well, pretending to love that fool. Winning over his son, and now the wedding. But you guys better pay me fairly. I'm not some cheap escort, Ryan chimed in, his voice sneering. Don't worry, Dad and I hired you because you're a pro. Steven's assets are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll get your share for sure. I slumped into the chair, my ears ringing, the world around me blurring. Logan continued, his voice choked. I caught her going into Grandpa's room last night. Dad, I hid outside the door and recorded everything. They're plotting to take your assets to get rid of you. And Alexis, she's an escort hired by Grandpa and Uncle Ryan to approach you. He held up photos, blurry but clear. Alexis sitting close to Ryan, her hand on his thigh. Peter holding a glass of wine with a conspiratorial smile. That intimate scene made me nauseous. The horrifying truth unfolded before my eyes. Alexis wasn't the sophisticated, loving woman I met at the charity event. She was a professional escort, hired by my adoptive father and brother to seduce me, marry me, and then steal everything my company, my assets, and perhaps even my life. Listen to the rest of the recording, each word like a knife to my heart. They detailed the plan after the wedding. Alexis would convince me to sign papers for the family's future. Then they'd use lawyers to transfer shares, frame me, or manipulate the board to oust me. Steven will crumble just like when his wife left him, Peter said, his voice full of glee. He's not my real son, so I don't care. Ryan laughed loudly, and his kid. We'll get rid of the brat so no one gets in the way. Logan cried harder, hugging me tightly. Dad, I've tried to warn you so many times. I followed them, took pictures, recorded everything. Don't marry her anymore, Dad. At first I couldn't believe it. I looked at Alexis, the woman I loved passionately, now sitting there with a pale face, trying to force a smile. Steven, don't listen to the kid. He's imagining things. But the evidence was too clear. The voices, the images, everything connected. My heart shattered, pain crashing over me like waves. I realized that my adoptive father and brother had orchestrated it all to ruin me. The people I once called family, though they never saw me as their real kin, were jealous of my success, wanting to seize everything I'd built from nothing. And Alexis, whom I thought would heal my old hurts, was just a tool in their vile scheme. I was in deep shock, sitting motionless, tears streaming down without me noticing. I blamed myself for ignoring Logan's warnings, for letting love cloud my judgment. Son, I'm sorry, I whispered, hugging Logan tightly, feeling his pain. 10-year-old boy who had to witness and gather evidence alone while I dismissed him time and again. The agony surged, but with it came an awakening. I couldn't let them win. I decided to expose them all on the final day of the wedding ceremony instead of canceling quietly. This would be my revenge public, painful and unforgiving. Alexis tried to explain, but I pushed her away. Get out of here. She left with a panicked expression, and I sat there holding Logan, planning in my head. The storm had arrived, but I wouldn't fall. I would stand up stronger than ever for my son, for my adoptive mother, and for myself. I sat motionless in the bungalow, holding Logan tightly, feeling as if my heart was being ripped apart. His tears soaked my shirt as I stroked his back, whispering words of comfort that I desperately needed to hear myself. I'm sorry, son. Dad was wrong. You were right all along. Logan looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen, but shining with relief. You believe me now, Dad? What are we going to do? I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the rage boiling in my chest. The wedding was still underway outside, with hundreds of guests, the media, and those traitors laughing as if nothing was amiss. I couldn't let them win, couldn't quietly cancel and let them continue living their lie. No, I would expose them right here, in front of everyone, letting the truth shine under the brilliant Maldivian sun. I wiped away Logan's tears, my voice Firm, we're ending this today, son. Dad will show everyone their true faces. He nodded, and we sprang into action. I immediately called my lawyer in Boston. Prepare the legal documents and fly here right away, I said over the phone, my voice icy. Then I contacted the resort's technical team, requesting a large screen for the main stage, where the wedding ceremony was set for the afternoon. I copied all the evidence from Logan's phone, the intimate photos, the full audio recordings, messages, and even the contract hiring Alexis that Logan had captured through the door crack. I edited them into a concise yet powerful video clip, complete with a QR code so guests could view it on their own phones if they wished. Everything had to be public, undeniable. In the meantime, I maintained my composure. I went outside, smiling, and chatting with guests as if nothing was wrong, but inside, a storm raged. My adoptive father, Peter, and Ryan approached me with fake smiles. Ready for the big day, son? Peter patted my shoulder, his eyes flashing with a greed I now recognized. Ryan smirked. Your future sister-in-law is really nervous. I nodded, holding back my anger. Yeah, everything will be full of surprises. Alexis avoided me, but I saw her glancing from afar, her face pale. My adoptive mother, Deborah, the only one who knew nothing, pulled me aside. Son, are you okay? You look off? I hugged her, whispering, Stay by my side, Mom. Something's going to happen today? She nodded, her eyes worried but full of trust. Time passed agonizingly slowly. Then, as afternoon arrived, the resort was lavishly decorated, vibrant, fresh flowers. Pristine white chairs in rows, a stage with an arch of blooms, and a large LED screen. Guests gathered, the media snapped photos, and soft music echoed. Wore a sleek black suit, standing by the stage, my heart pounding. Logan was beside me, gripping my hand tightly, and my adoptive mother sat in the front row, her face etched with anxiety. Alexis emerged in a pristine white wedding dress, her smile forced, trying to maintain perfection. My adoptive father and Ryan sat nearby, laughing with guests as if they were the closest family. The crucial moment arrived. The MCA professional, host we had hired, stepped onto the stage with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the joyous day for Stephen Collins and Alexis Monroe. Let us witness their vows under this stunning sunset. The officiant, a local priest, prepared to pronounce the marriage, holding the Bible, his voice solemn. Stephen and Alexis, do you agree? But before he could finish, I stepped onto the stage, raising my hand to stop him. The music cut off abruptly, and all eyes turned to me. I'm sorry, everyone, I said, my voice echoing through the microphone. But today is not a wedding day. Today is the day the truth is revealed. The atmosphere instantly fell silent, with only the sound of waves crashing and murmurs from the guests. Alexis froze, her face ashen. My adoptive father, Peter, and Ryan exchanged panicked glances. I took a deep breath, my voice steady. I believed I had found true love, a home for my son and myself, but it was all a deception. Of you all, friends, partners, and the media, I will show you the true faces of these betrayers. I signaled the technician, and the large LED screen lit up. The clip began playing, intimate photos of Alexis with Ryan, audio resounding clearly Peter's voice. Seize the company. Remove him, Alexis's voice. I'm not some cheap escort. Remember to share the cut, Ryan's voice. We'll take all. The assets chaos erupted immediately. Guests gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Some stood up, snapping photos of the screen with their phones. The media rushed forward, flashes blazing. Alexis was stunned. Stephen, stop. This is a misunderstanding. She ran onto the stage, trying to grab the microphone from my hand, but I pushed her away hard enough that she sprawled onto the stage floor. I continued, my voice cold. Misunderstanding? This is evidence from your own mouths? My adoptive father, Peter, jumped up, face flushed. You bastard, how dare you slander me? I charged toward the stage, but my lawyer, who had flown in just in time, stepped forward, holding legal documents. Mr. Collins, this is a restraining order from the Boston court. Any action will be evidence against you. Ryan was more panicked, trying to deny this is fabricated. Stephen's jealous of us. But his voice trembled, and those around them looked at them with contempt. I continued, my voice sharp and resounding. Across the beach, I cancel this marriage immediately. Alexis Monroe, or whatever your real name is, will not be my wife. And Peter Collins, Ryan Collins, you are no longer my family. I sever all ties, and my lawyers will sue you for conspiracy to seize assets, fraud, and betrayal. Applause began from one corner from my close friends and partners who knew my arduous entrepreneurial journey. The media filmed frantically, and I saw some guests scanning the QR code on the screen, viewing the full evidence, their faces shifting from shock to outrage. Alexis sobbed, kneeling on the stage. Stephen, I really love you. This is their plot, not mine. But her voice was weak, and no one believed her. My adoptive father, Peter, tried to charge again. You're just an adopted brat. You don't deserve anything. Those words fueled the fire. Guests booed, some standing to criticize him. Ryan tried to flee, but the resort security I had arranged blocked him. The chaos peaked. Shouts, cries, whispers, and non-stop flashes. Stood there watching. Them struggle in despair, feeling like a burden had been lifted. I had awakened, and now it was time for them to pay. My adoptive mother, Deborah, rose from the front row, tears streaming down. But she walked onto the stage, hugging me and Logan. I'm with you, Stephen. I had no idea. I'm sorry. She turned to Peter, her voice trembling but resolute. Peter, you've betrayed everything. I'm divorcing you. Applause rang out again, louder this time, from most of the guests. My friends rushed up, patting my shoulder. Stephen, you're so strong. The media interviewed on the spot. Mr. Collins, can you tell us the details? I politely declined, leading Logan and my mother away from the stage amid the crowd's support. We walked along the beach, leaving behind the chaos, Alexis sobbing. Peter and Ryan detained by security, and the wedding turned into a massive scandal. As we left the resort, I felt an enormous weight lift from my shoulders. The Maldivian beach was still breathtaking, with its white sands and turquoise waters, but now it was no longer a stage for fabricated happiness. Logan gripped my hand tightly, smiling for the first time in days. Dad, let's just go home. My adoptive mother walked beside us, wiping away her tears, but her eyes were more resolute than ever. Son, I'll be by your side, and Logan's will be a real family, she said, her warm voice stirring my heart. We boarded the private jet back to Boston, leaving behind the traitors to face the consequences of their actions. The days that followed were a media storm. News of the wedding scandal spread everywhere, from major newspapers to social media. EdTech millionaire Stephen Collins exposes fraud conspiracy at lavish wedding. The headlines screamed. I received hundreds of supportive messages from friends, business partners, and even strangers. My company was unaffected. In fact, its stock soared because people admired my courage. I fully preserved my assets, thanks to transferring them into a trust fund in time, and my social standing grew even stronger. Public opinion was on my side, hailing me as a hero who overcame betrayal, and I was grateful for that. But deep down, I knew this victory wasn't an end, but the beginning of painful repercussions for those who had harmed me. First was my adoptive mother, Deborah. She couldn't bear her husband's betrayal, the man she had lived with for so many years, only to discover he was greedy, willing to sell out his family for money. Right after returning to Boston, she filed for divorce. Like that anymore, Stephen? She told me during our first dinner at the Townhouse in Back Bay. She sat there, her hands trembling as she held her teacup, but her voice was firm. Peter tried to beg, calling nonstop, sending flowers and apology letters, but she didn't waver. The court ruled quickly because the evidence from the scandal was overwhelming. Peter's participation in the fraud conspiracy cost him all his rights in the marriage. She received a fair share of the assets, but she didn't care about the money. I just want to live peacefully with you and my grandson, she said. And so, she moved in with me and Logan. The townhouse now felt warmer than ever. She cooked family. Meals told stories to Logan and became an emotional pillar for us, father and son. Logan called her Dear Grandma, and the boy finally laughed and played again, as if his emotional wounds were beginning to heal. My adoptive brother, Ryan, suffered the heaviest consequences. He had once been arrogant, always mocking me, thinking he was the real son and thus more deserving. But after the scandal, everything collapsed. Ryan was working at a finance company in Boston where he'd bragged about his millionaire brother. But when the news broke, his boss, an old partner of mine, called him into the office and fired him on the spot. "We don't need betrayers on our team," they said. Ryan lost all credibility. Friends turned their backs. Business relationships crumbled. Tried to find new jobs, but everyone knew about the incident through the media. Ryan Collins, the one who plotted against his adoptive brother. No thanks. Recruiters rejected him. In the end, he had to leave Boston, moving to a small town in the Midwest, living in a cheap apartment, doing odd jobs to survive. I heard he tried to contact me once, sending an apology message. "Brother Stephen, I was wrong. Give me a chance." But I deleted the message without replying. Ryan was now alone, impoverished, and regretful, a fitting consequence for the years he had caused me pain. My adoptive father, Peter, endured even greater suffering. He lost everything. His wife after the swift divorce, the adoptive son he had always despised, and his grandson, Logan, the child he had never cared about. His relatives scorned him. His own siblings turned away. "Peter, you've brought shame to the family." He lived alone in the old house in the Boston suburbs with no one visiting. The media hounded him, calling him the betraying adoptive father, and he had to hide, keeping the doors locked tight. I heard he tried to sell the house to pay off debts because the lawsuit from my lawyers stripped him of all personal assets. Peter aged visibly, his hair turning completely white. And once Deborah told me, he called her crying, "Deborah, I was wrong. Please forgive me." But she shook her head. "It's too late, Peter." He was now lonely, abandoned by society, and had to live with the torment that his own greed had destroyed everything he once had. As for Alexis Monroe, my fake bride, she returned to her old life in a pitiful way. She had once dreamed of turning her life around, thinking a marriage to a millionaire would bring luxury. Everything shattered. The media dubbed her the professional escort in a fraud conspiracy, and her images spread everywhere. She lost all her clients, wealthy men who didn't want to be associated with the scandal. Alexis tried moving to New York, changing her name, but her past caught up. She went back to being an escort, but now at a lower level, living in a cramped apartment, facing contempt every day. I didn't hate her as much as Peter and Ryan, since she was just a tool. But I felt no pity. Her illusions of a better life were shattered, and now she had to live with the consequences of her deceit. As for me, despite the pain, I had preserved everything. My assets were secure, and my company grew stronger thanks to public support. I received a flood of interview requests, new contracts, and even offers for a book about my journey. Most importantly, I had Logan and my mother. We were now a real family, truly bonded and loving. I spent more time with my son, making up for the days I had ignored him. "Dad loves you more than anything in the world," I'd say every night, hugging Logan to sleep. And my mother became a source of immense strength, helping me heal my wounds. Those painful consequences weren't just for the betrayers. They also taught me a crucial lesson. Family isn't about blood, but about those who truly love you. I moved forward stronger than ever, ready for a future free from the shadow of deceit. In the months following the scandal, my life gradually returned to normal, but on a new path, one that was more solid and warmer than ever before. Logan, my adoptive mother, Deborah, and I now live together in the townhouse in Back Bay, transforming it into a true home where laughter echoes instead of whispered deceptions. Every morning, Mom wakes early, brewing aromatic coffee and toasting bread for Logan before school. She sits beside him, listening to him talk about his latest drawings or school stories, her eyes sparkling with love. "Grandma, today I drew a picture of our family," Logan once said, holding up a drawing of 3 figures holding hands under the sun. Mom smiled, stroking his hair. "It's beautiful, my dear. We're a real family now." I watched the scene from the kitchen doorway, my heart unusually warm. No more lonely evenings, no more sleepless nights dwelling on the past. We ate dinner together, watched movies, or simply sat by the fireplace, sharing everyday stories. This new family wasn't bound by blood, but by genuine love, the kind of love that had helped us weather the storm. I devoted more time than ever to making up for what Logan, my beloved son, had endured. I had suffered so much witnessing the betrayal, gathering evidence alone, and being ignored by me time and again. Due to my blind love, I blamed myself every time I recalled those moments, and I was determined to restore his faith in family. Every weekend we explored Boston together, strolling around the Common, playing basketball in the backyard, or even taking short trips to Cape Cod where we built sandcastles and laughed under the sun. "Dad, I trust you now," Logan once said. As we sat by the shore watching the waves, "I know you love me the most." I hugged him tightly, tears streaming down. "I'll never let you hurt again, son. We're an unbeatable team." I helped him with homework, encouraged his artistic talent, and listened to all his thoughts. From minor worries to grand dreams, Logan gradually opened up again, his smile brighter, and his shaken faith in family now as solid as a rock. He no longer feared thoughts of a stepmother or a broken family. Instead, he was proud of us. Dad, Grandma, and him, an inseparable trio. Through it all, I gained profound lessons, ones I would carry with me for life. I had loved blindly, letting my longing for a home cloud my judgment, ignoring every warning sign from Logan and my own intuition. That blindness nearly led to tragedy, risking all my assets, my son, and perhaps even my life if their plan had succeeded. I realized that not everyone is sincere. The world is full of opportunists, fake smiles, hiding daggers. "Stephen, what have you learned from this?" Mom asked me one evening as we sat by the fireplace. I sighed. "Mom, I've learned that love must come with reason. Can't let emotions lead while ignoring the truth." I began living more cautiously, thoroughly vetting new relationships, listening to Logan more, and building walls around my heart. The wounds were still there, but they made me stronger, more alert, and no longer easily deceived. Even so, I still held on to hope for a brighter future. I hadn't closed my heart forever. I believed that one day a sincere woman would appear, not through glamorous events or schemes, but through simple, everyday moments, perhaps a colleague at work or a stranger at a coffee shop. Someone who would love me for who I am, love Logan as her own, and help build a real home. But this time, I would be more cautious, listening to my intuition, checking carefully, and never letting love obscure reason. "Dad, if you meet someone new, I'll support it if they're genuine," Logan once said, making me smile. I nodded. "I promise, son. We'll decide together." That hope was like a small light illuminating the days ahead, reminding me that life still held many good things in store. And finally, the message I want to convey through this story, the message that changed my life forever. Family isn't about blood, but about those who truly love and protect you. Peter and Ryan, despite sharing family blood, were never real family. They were just greedy strangers. But Mom, Deborah, and Logan, one, my adoptive mother, the other my son from a broken marriage, they were the pillars, the source of strength that helped me stand up. In a world full of deceit, cherish those who stand by you in tough times, those willing to sacrifice for you. I learned that through tears and pain, and now I live by it every day. My story ends here, but the journey continues, a journey of rebirth, hope, and genuine love. Thank you for listening.